The alien spaceport of Cathara was loud, crowded, and full of strange smells. Ships from 100 worlds rested on landing pads made of black stone. Traders shouted prices in mixed languages. Soldiers marched in thick armor. And strange creatures with too many eyes watched every movement. In the middle of this noise stood a quiet human named Eli Turner. He was not tall, not strong, and not wearing any armor. He carried only a small bag and a dented cooking pot. His brown hair was messy, and his clothes looked worn from long travel. He didn't look like a fighter. But in this war-torn galaxy, everyone expected humans to be fighters. When Eli arrived at the station, most aliens ignored him. A few glanced and turned away. Humans were new in this region of space, mysterious, unpredictable, and not trusted yet. Eli found a corner near a supply crate and started unpacking his things. From the bag, he took out a few small tools, some packets of spice, and a small, portable heater. He placed his pot on it, poured in some water, and began to cook. The smell spread quickly, warm, rich, and sweet. Something comforting that didn't belong in the cold halls of metal. People walking by slowed down. A group of insect-like aliens clicked their jaws in curiosity. A few lizard soldiers sniffed the air, confused but interested. Then Commander Reaver, leader of the Alien Defense Force, came closer. He was tall, with silver-green scales and bright golden eyes. His armor was clean and heavy. His long tail moved slowly behind him. He looked down at Eli and asked in a rough voice, "You there? What are you doing?" "This is not a market." Eli looked up calmly. "Cooking." Rever blinked. "Cooking? What kind of weapon is that?" Eli smiled a little. "It's not a weapon. It's dinner." The commander frowned, confused. "You are a human soldier, are you not?" Eli shook his head. "Not really. I used to feed soldiers. Now, I just feed whoever's hungry." The alien commander stared at the small pot. The smell was strange, but somehow peaceful. "You humans," he said slowly, "always bring something strange with you. Weapons, machines, fire." Eli stirred the pot quietly. "This is fire too, but a better kind." The commander tilted his head, still puzzled. "You serve under anyone's flag?" Eli shrugged. "Used to. Now I just travel. Sometimes people let me stay if I cook." Rever's tail flicked once, showing amusement. "You trade food for shelter?" "Yeah," Eli said softly. "It keeps everyone alive." Rever looked again at the pot. "What are you cooking?" "Soup," Eli replied. "Nothing special. A bit of water, salt, dried beans, and spice." The alien commander frowned again. "Beans, we use those to feed pack beasts?" Eli chuckled. "Maybe your beasts have good taste." Something about the quiet human's tone made Rever stop questioning. He gave a small hand signal, and 2 guards stepped forward. "Taste it," he ordered. The guards hesitated, then each took a spoonful. The first hissed, surprised. "It's warm, sweet, feels like light." The second nodded quickly. "It makes me remember my nest." Long ago, Rever took a spoonful himself. For a long moment, he said nothing. The warmth spread through his chest, melting the cold anger he didn't realize he carried. "This," he said quietly, "is not fuel. It is peace." Eli smiled again, small and tired. "That's the idea." By nightfall, the story had spread through the station about a human who cooked instead of fought. Soldiers from different races came to see him. Some brought trade items, dried meat, old vegetables, alien spices. Eli used everything, turning strange ingredients into something edible, sometimes even good. That night, the cold metal base smelled like home. Laughter rose again in places where silence had ruled for months. Commander Rever stood by the entrance, watching. "You've done something strange to my soldiers, human," he said. They talk again. They laugh. "It's dangerous to make people remember what they've lost." Eli looked up from the pot. "Or maybe it helps them remember what they're fighting for." Before Rever could answer, alarms echoed through the station. Red lights flashed. The walls trembled as distant explosions shook the air. Enemy attack. Someone shouted. The alien soldiers ran to their posts, grabbing weapons. Rever drew his plasma spear and turned to Eli. Hide. You cannot fight. Eli didn't move. He took one look at the big heating pipes running along the kitchen wall and at the crates of boiling water nearby. He said quietly, You got engine vents connected to the outer gates? Rever blinked. Yes. Why? Eli didn't answer. He grabbed his pot, poured the soup into a large bucket, mixed it with more water, and ran toward the vents. Steam hissed around him. Rever followed, shouting, What are you doing? Eli climbed onto a crate, lifted a metal lid, and dumped the boiling mixture straight into the main vent that led to the outer defense mechs. Within seconds, the system overloaded. The machines outside let out a mechanical shriek as their joints froze. Their cooling systems jammed. Smoke filled the screens in the control room. The alien engineers yelled in surprise. The mechs are shutting down. Eli wiped his forehead. Hot water and bean paste. Works better than acid sometimes. Rever stared, half amazed, half amused. You are insane, maybe Eli said, but it works. The enemy attack stopped after a few minutes. The machines froze in the sand outside the base, their engines dead. No one understood exactly how it happened, but Rever did. After the defense team confirmed the area was clear, the commander went back to find Eli. He was cleaning his pot, quiet as always. Rever crossed his arms. You fight with food. You fix engines with soup. You confuse my entire army. What are you, human? Eli looked up, eyes tired but kind. Someone who likes people full and alive? The commander's golden eyes softened for the first time. He gave a slow nod. Then perhaps you are more dangerous than any weapon. That night, Rever ordered a small meal for his officers cooked by Eli. It wasn't fancy, just hot stew and baked root bread, but it changed something in everyone who tasted it. After the meal, one of the younger soldiers, an avian creature with blue feathers, whispered to his friend, Do you think the human's food has magic? The other soldier shook his head. No, it just reminds me that I am still alive. Rever stayed behind when others left. He stood beside Eli, who was packing up his things again. Where will you go next? Rever asked. Don't know, Eli said. Wherever someone's hungry, I guess. The commander tilted his head. Stay, my army could use your strange gift. Eli chuckled softly. I'm not a soldier, Rever smiled. A rare sight. Neither am I. Not anymore. Eli looked at him, studying his scarred face. Then he nodded once. All right then. I'll stay a while. But I need a kitchen. You'll have it, Rever said. And supplies. The next morning, the alien base was different. The soldiers woke to the smell of fresh bread and spiced broth. Eli worked quietly, surrounded by a dozen different species, each trying to help him. For the first time, aliens who barely spoke to each other before were laughing, cutting vegetables, sharing recipes. The alien commander stood by the door and watched. He didn't understand everything, but he knew one truth. Something had changed. Later that day, said to his second-in-command, that human he fights in ways we don't understand. Without weapons, without words, the officer nodded slowly. Yet we feel stronger because of him. Rever gave a small smile. Perhaps that is humanity's true weapon. That evening, Eli sat by the fire he built outside the base. The sky of Cathera turned red, with twin suns setting behind dark mountains. The soldiers ate quietly, side by side. There was no arguing, no fear, just peace. Rever sat beside him, holding a bowl of soup. He glanced at the human. I still do not understand how this cooking brings such calm. Eli stirred his own bowl, thinking. When people share food, they stop seeing enemies. They just see someone else trying to survive the same day. Rever looked at him for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. You teach without words. Eli smiled. Told you. I don't talk much, man. The commander chuckled. Works for me, for the first time in months, under the twin suns of Cathera. Both human and alien sat together, not as soldiers, but as friends. Weeks passed since the day Eli joined the alien camp. The soldiers had started calling him the Quiet Flame. Wherever he cooked, hope returned. Even the most tired warriors found reasons to smile again. The war outside, however, did not stop. The machine army still attacked distant colonies. Their metal fleets moved across the stars like silent storms. Commander Revar's troops were ordered to defend new worlds every few days. And Eli followed them wherever they went, carrying the same old pot and a few boxes of spice. He did not complain. He cooked in broken hangars, in ruined villages, and inside freezing bunkers. Sometimes he used alien fuel instead of wood, and sometimes he just warmed the food with a piece of metal and sunlight. No matter the place, the smell of his cooking always spread like a promise. One evening, the soldiers returned from a long march. The air was full of dust, and their armor was cracked. No one spoke. They had lost good friends that day. Eli saw the sadness in their eyes. He didn't say a word. He just started cooking. He took a handful of dry roots, crushed them, mixed them with powder from his pack, and added clean water from a tank. Slowly, the fire began to burn. The first bit of steam carried a soft smell, earthy and warm. One of the soldiers, a small gray-skinned creature named Tivin, asked quietly, "Human, why do you still do this?" "We keep losing battles. The machines don't care about food," Eli kept stirring. "That's why we do care. Because we're not machines." Tivin frowned but said nothing more. When the food was ready, Eli handed out bowls. At first, no one wanted to eat. Then one soldier took a bite, then another. Soon the silence changed into small talk, then laughter. Even Tivin smiled again. Commander Rever stood watching them from the edge of the firelight. His officers joined him, whispering, "Morale increases wherever he goes," one said. "The troops work harder, complain less," Rever nodded slowly. Strange power for one so quiet. Later that night, the commander approached Eli. The human sat by the fading fire, cleaning the pot as usual. "You should know," Rever said. "The council has heard about you. They want to see this." "Cook of Hope," Eli raised his eyes. "Council." "Yes," Rever said. "The rulers of the allied fleets. They think you might be a tool to strengthen their armies." Eli sighed softly. "I'm not a tool. I'm just a man with a pot." The next morning, they flew to the main capital ship, the Vorn Prime. It was the heart of the Alien Alliance, a huge vessel that glowed like a silver mountain in space. As they entered, hundreds of alien officers stared at the human. Some looked curious, others doubtful. Rumors had already spread. A human who wins wars with soup. Inside the grand chamber, the council members waited. They were tall, robed figures from many worlds. Their eyes showed exhaustion. The war had lasted too long. Rever saluted them. "Honored council, this is Eli Turner of Earth." Eli nodded politely. "Evening." The oldest counselor, a creature of mist and light, spoke first. "Human, we have heard you are different. You do not fight. You cook." Eli nodded again. "That's right." Another counselor leaned forward. "Explain how food helps win battles." Eli thought for a moment. When people eat together, they remember they're still people. That makes them fight for each other, not just orders. Some aliens muttered. One scoffed loudly. "This is nonsense. War is fought with weapons, not feelings." Rever stepped forward. "With respect, Council, his presence changed my army. Without him, we would have broken weeks ago." The old mist being studied Eli carefully. "Prove it." Eli looked around. "Do you have a kitchen?" Moments later, he was given a cold metal room filled with strange equipment. Dozens of eyes watched him as he opened his bag and began to work. He used alien roots, sea crystals, and a few drops of human spice. The smell started soft and then filled the hall like sunlight after rain. When the meal was ready, he said nothing. He simply handed a bowl to each council member. They hesitated, then tasted for the first time in years. The hall was silent not from anger, but from peace. The oldest counselor closed his glowing eyes. "It feels like home," he whispered. Another counselor nodded slowly. "I remember the forests of my world." Revor smiled faintly. "You see, the human fights without fighting." But before anyone could speak more, alarms blared. The ship shook. Officers ran into the chamber. "Machine fleet detected. They're attacking the capital line." The council panicked. "Evacuate," shouted one. "Protect the archives." Rever drew his weapon. "Eli, stay here." But Eli didn't stay. He ran toward the lower decks. He found the ship's kitchens already hit by explosions. Pipes were leaking gas, lights flickering. The cooks and workers were scared, trapped under fallen metal. Eli didn't think twice. He lifted debris, helped them out, and turned off a gas leak before it could ignite. Then he looked around at the frightened crew. "You all okay?" A young alien shook her head. "We lost power to the food bays. Thousands of wounded need energy rations." Eli pointed toward a half-broken heating vent. "We can make something quick. Find me anything edible." Within minutes, he had volunteers bringing boxes, roots, and water packs. He used emergency power to light the heaters. Slowly, the smell of warm soup spread again through the damaged corridors. When Rever found him later, the human was covered in soot, stirring a pot among wreckage. Soldiers lined up quietly to receive food. "What are you doing?" Rever demanded, though his voice softened. Eli wiped his forehead. "Feeding survivors. The ship is still under attack," Rever said. "Then they'll need strength," Eli answered simply. Rever stared at him. "You could have died." Eli gave a small smile. "Someone has to keep the fires going." Outside, the battle raged for hours. The machines were eventually forced to retreat, but the capital ship was left scarred. Hundreds were injured, but because of Eli's quick thinking, they didn't starve or freeze. Days later, the council called him again, not in judgment this time, but in gratitude. The mist being bowed his head. "Human Eli, you have saved many lives. What do you ask in return?" Eli thought for a long moment. "I don't want rewards. I just need better kitchens on every ship. A place where anyone can cook, not just soldiers." The council looked at each other, confused at first. Then Rever said quietly, "He's right. We fight for peace, but we never learn to live like it." And so the council agreed. They built small kitchens on every major ships, simple, warm spaces called human corners. Every race began sharing food there. Battles were still fought, but soldiers started to understand each other more. Months passed. The war began to turn. The machine armies, cold and logical, could not understand how morale had risen across the fleets. In one battle after another, the alien alliance held firm. Even when the odds were terrible, no one gave up. Eli stayed busy, moving from ship to ship, teaching cooks how to mix alien and human foods, how to bring comfort in simple bowls. Wherever he went, hope followed. One evening, Revar visited him on a transport ship. Eli was making flatbread with glowing alien grains. "You've become famous," Rever said. "Every soldier knows your name now." Eli smiled faintly. "I didn't plan that. I just kept cooking." Rever sat beside him. "Do you miss your home?" Eli looked out at the stars. "Sometimes, but I think I'm where I'm needed." Rever nodded. "When this war ends, you will be honored." Eli laughed softly. "Honor doesn't feed people." Later that night, the commander watched him work, surrounded by soldiers from 5 worlds, all helping each other. None of them shared the same language, but laughter filled the room anyway. The commander realized something he had never seen before. In all his years of war, no treaty, no speech, no weapon had united people like this quiet human with a pot. When the meal was ready, Rever raised his bowl and said, "To the cook who fights with kindness." The soldiers repeated the words, cheering softly. Eli just smiled, embarrassed, and said, "Eat before it gets cold." For the first time in many years, the fleet felt like a family. But even peace within war is fragile. Reports soon came of a new kind of machine Wapena destroyer-class ship that could wipe out entire fleets. The council called it the Iron Sun. Rever was assigned to lead the counter mission, and Eli, against orders, insisted on going too. "I can't fight," he said, "but I can help keep your people alive," Rever sighed. "You'll get yourself killed one day." Eli gave that same small shrug. "Maybe, but until then, I'll keep the fire burning." The commander looked at him for a long moment and then smiled faintly. "Works for me." As the fleet prepared to face the Iron Sun, everyone ate together that night. No fear, no despair, just warmth and quiet strength carried in the smell of a human's cooking. And somewhere beyond the stars, the machine minds began to realize something they had never expected. They could destroy ships, they could crush armies, but they could never kill the simple, stubborn flame of a human heart. The fleet of Allied ships moved silently through the void, their metal hulls gleaming faintly against the backdrop of distant stars. Commander Rever stood on the bridge of the Vorn Prime, looking at the map that displayed the incoming path of the Iron Suna. Massive machine ship rumored to have destroyed entire planetary colonies. The size of it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Beside him, Eli Turner carried a small pack and his dented cooking pot. He did not wear armor, he did not carry a weapon, yet he walked with calm determination. The crew had grown used to it by now. Wherever Eli went, the soldiers felt safer. Even in the shadow of the Iron Sun, his quiet presence was a kind of shield. Rever sighed. "You know this mission is dangerous? The Iron Sun doesn't leave survivors." Eli shrugged in his usual way. "I don't fight. I just keep people fed and awake. Someone has to." The commander looked at him for a long moment. He wanted to argue, to insist Eli stay behind. But after seeing how many lives the human had saved, he knew it was useless. Eli's stubbornness had become part of their strategy. The ships approached the battlefield. The Iron Sun was enormous, its metal body black as void, moving slowly but with unstoppable power. Its weapons glowed like angry suns, and smaller machines swarmed around it like predatory fish. Rever turned to his fleet. "All ships prepare for attack formation. Keep your shields strong. We cannot allow the Iron Sun to reach the colonies." Eli quietly found a corner of the bridge where a small cooking station had been set up for him. He began preparing something simple, a stew with preserved alien roots and dried human vegetables. He worked silently, chopping, stirring, and tasting. The soldiers passing by paused to watch. "He really believes food will help," muttered one insect-like warrior. Rever shook his head. "He does more than we ever could with weapons. Watch and learn." As the Iron Sun drew closer, the first wave of attack drones approached the fleet. Lasers streaked through space, striking shields and exploding in bright flashes. The Allied ships fired back, but the machines were relentless. Inside the fleet, tension was high. Soldiers shouted orders. Engineers worked furiously to repair damaged shields, and alarms rang continuously. Many were exhausted, both from fighting and fear. Eli ignored all of it. He continued cooking. Steam rose from his pot, carrying a familiar warm smell. It floated through the small corridor and into the nearby quarters where the soldiers were resting. They paused, inhaled, and felt something they hadn't felt in months. Calm. One young pilot, trembling with fear before her next jump, leaned toward the smell and whispered, "It's home." Another soldier nodded, trying to smile. "If we survive, we'll remember this smell forever." Rever glanced at Eli once more. "The machines cannot understand morale. That is the human advantage." Hours passed. The battle grew fierce. Ships were hit, and explosions rocked the fleet. Despite this, no one broke ranks. The stew that Eli cooked was delivered to every bridge, every quarter, every medical bay. The warmth in their bellies gave strength to their arms, steadiness to their hands, and courage to their hearts. At one point, a small squadron of enemy ships broke through the outer shield line and began targeting the medical decks. The soldiers were outnumbered, and panic threatened to spread. Eli didn't leave his pot. Instead, he guided the medics in serving warm food and water to every soldier and wounded alien. The simple act of nourishment turned fear into determination. Even when explosions shook the corridors, the crews pressed on. Rever fought through the command deck, checking on the engineers and pilots. When he passed Eli's corner, he stopped. The human stirred his pot with calm hands, as if the destruction around them didn't exist. "You could be helping with shields or weapons," Rever said, incredulous. Eli looked up, calm. "This helps too. They fight better when they are fed." The commander shook his head. "You're impossible. But it works." As the battle reached its peak, the Iron Sun fired a massive energy beam aimed directly at the center of the fleet. Allied ships scrambled, shields flared, and explosions lit the darkness of space. Inside the fleet, Eli grabbed a pot of hot stew and ran toward the lower decks where the younger soldiers and medics were stationed. The corridors were crowded with panicked crew members, but he moved calmly, quietly directing them to safety while offering the warm stew. One small alien, quivering from fear, looked up at him. "Why aren't you afraid?" Eli handed him a bowl. "Because I have a job? Keep people alive. That's enough to be brave." The alien took the food and calmed slightly. Others followed. Soon, the entire lower deck was organized, fed, and ready to assist the fleet. Hours passed, and slowly, the tide of battle shifted. The Iron Sun's shields weakened because its attacks were disrupted by smaller ships and a united fleet. Crew members worked together with renewed energy, guided by determination and the strength of simple meals that kept them alive. Finally, the Iron Sun began to retreat. Its massive form moved away from the fleet, leaving behind a trail of destroyed drones and wreckage. The Allied ships were battered but intact. Rever leaned against the wall, exhausted, and finally looked at Eli. "You did it," he said softly. Eli shook his head. "We did it. I just kept the fire burning." Soldiers and crew began cheering. Even in their exhaustion, they smiled and hugged each other. For the first time in months, laughter returned to the fleet. That night after the battle, the fleet gathered for a meal prepared entirely by Eli. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, filling, and made from whatever supplies had survived. Rever watched as different species shared food, laughing and telling stories despite the horrors they had faced. Some spoke of lost comrades, others of homeworlds. All of them were human or, at least, human-inspired moments, hope, warmth, and connection. "You see it now, don't you?" Rever whispered to a nearby officer. "He fights without fighting. He leads without orders. He inspires without words." The officer nodded slowly. "I've never seen morale like this. Not from speeches, not from weapons." Eli quietly moved among the tables, serving and checking if everyone had enough. A young alien pilot raised his bowl. "To the human who cooks?" The others echoed, softly at first, then louder. "To the human who cooks?" Eli chuckled, a small smile on his face. "Eat before it gets cold," he said, almost shyly. Weeks passed. The fleet repaired, regrouped, and grew stronger. Eli continued to cook for every ship, every crew, and every soldier he could reach. The story of the quiet human who fought wars with food spread throughout the galaxy. Soldiers called him a hero, and even enemies whispered about the strange power of humanity's stubborn heart. One day, after another successful battle, Rever approached Eli on the deck of the flagship. The stars reflected off the metal hull, calm and endless. "You've done more than any weapon could," the commander said. "You've kept fleets together. You've given hope. You've fed thousands." Eli shrugged. "I just cook. I don't need medals or titles." Rever shook his head, smiling faintly. "You're impossible, but you've changed everything. And somehow, it works." Eli looked up at the stars, quiet for a moment. Maybe that's the human way. We don't always fight with fists or fire. Sometimes, we fight with small, stubborn acts that make life worth living. The commander nodded slowly. "Then you are the human way made real, and I will follow it. Works for me." That evening, under the glow of distant suns, the fleet celebrated. Fires burned in every corner, and the smell of warm food filled the air. Different species sat together, eating, laughing, telling stories of their worlds. Eli moved among them, quiet and calm, stirring his pot and adding spice here and there. He never sought recognition, yet every soul there felt his presence like a beacon. In the following weeks, the Iron Sun never returned. The machines that had once seemed unstoppable were now cautious, unable to break the morale of the united fleet. Soldiers fought harder, healed faster, and survived longer than anyone could have imagined. Eli Turner, the quiet human, continued his work stirring, chopping, tasting, and sharing. He never carried a weapon, yet his influence stretched across the galaxy. And in the final moments of Part 3, Commander Rever approached him once more. "You've done more than any army, human. You've taught us what it means to fight and live." Eli smiled faintly, stirred the pot, and said his familiar words. "I don't talk much, man. But I can cook," Rever nodded. "Works for me." And as the twin suns of distant Cathera rose over the calm fleet, the galaxy realized the quiet truth. Humanity's strength was not only in weapons or willpower, it was in the simple, stubborn fire of hearts that refused to let hope die. No matter how dark the void of space became, the Iron Sun may have been the deadliest machine, but it could never destroy what one human could carry in a simple pot: warmth, hope, and the unshakable spirit of life itself.